Hello, everyone. How are you? Hope you're having an incredible day. And may peace be upon you. And welcome to the show with me, your host, Dr. Izdihar Jamil, to It Takes Courage. And today, after that fantastic intro of the echoey sound of the reel, today we have a fabulous guest, a friend of mine, and also one of the top mediators and conflict consultant in the country, Carol Bucks, who is going to be sharing with us how we can resolve conflict quickly using her really powerful secret. So let's welcome Carol to the stage here. Hi, Carol. Good morning.
Hi, how are you?
I'm doing fantastic. What a welcome today. What a special day today. It is election day, and Carol and I were just touching on a couple of things backstage. But first off, Carol, congratulations on the release of your TEDx talk.
Oh, thank you so much. It is so exciting to have that released and out, and I just am excited to be able to share that message with the world. So thank you for working on that with me.
My pleasure. And we're going to be touching base and kind of like picking Carol's brain from her TEDx talk on how we can resolve conflicts quickly. So, Carol, let's go straight into it. What is the number one secret or a couple of tips that you can share with people? And when they are resolving conflicts, especially when things started to get tense, you can feel it in your body before the fire erupts. So what are the things that you would want people to know when that's about to happen or are happening?
Sure. And I think the first thing I'd like to tackle is how do you know it's happening, right? We intuitively know. So back on when our brains were developing, we paid far more attention to nonverbal communication than language itself because we were migratory tribes and we didn't necessarily have the same language. So when somebody came up to us, we had to decide if they were a friend who wanted to trade with us or a foe who was going to kill us and take our stuff. So intuitively, we pay attention to each other, and sometimes we're better at it than others, and we wait a little too long. But if we just slow down, we can see when somebody's face is getting red, when maybe their jaws are starting to clench, maybe their voice is starting to get higher, maybe their voice is starting to crack, or they're starting to get angry. And that's a cue that we have something that's going on, something's going down. And the most important thing we can do is control ourselves because we have no control over the other people, but we absolutely have control of how we show up. And the most important way is to show up with kindness and curiosity. You and I have talked about this so much, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So showing up the way we show up in having like a moment to reflect, a moment to take a breath before you even say that word or before you even send that message or before you even kind of like move your body in that physical space of that person. And you also said that show up with this kindness, with this compassion. And that isn't always easy when you have like all this fire inside of you, especially when you feel that what the other person saying isn't, it's not the right thing, or you don't agree with it. So how do we kind of ground ourselves with this feeling of kindness, this feeling of compassion when everything in us is going the opposite way?
Sure. So it's a little bit complicated, but it's also very easy. So maybe it's easy, but then not always easy to simple to do, like when we're in that moment. But the first thing is to have control over yourself. So we have these neurons that are on the top front sides of our brain called mirror neurons. And they help us with that dissecting of how the other person is coming on. And if they're coming in hot and we react, then they can escalate us and we can lose total control of the thinking part of our brain. We can just get into that fight or flight response. But if we just slow down for a minute and realize, wow, here's somebody who is clearly in their fight or flight moment, and we just manage our breathing and really take a moment to just stop and focus on kindness. And the even better is focus on someone who has brought you tremendous happiness or joy. So for me, it was the birth of my youngest kiddo. It was just such a magical, special moment that when I picture it, it calms me down and it makes me smile naturally, and it makes the muscles around my eyes smile. And that generates trust in the other person by upwards of 25%, research says. And so what happens is when our faces and expressions are syncing, if I'm more in control of how I'm coming across, that other person will de-escalate because they have to, because their neurons are syncing with my neurons. But if I'm not in control of myself and they're coming in hot, they can activate me, and now I become part of the problem too. So the first thing is to really set that intention and really set your brain's thoughts for kindness, because they will resonate with that, because you're not getting a harsh look that further antagonizes them. And then the next thing is to be, like we had mentioned, conflict curious. So I'm not asking to have my point heard. I'm just letting them unpack, because when they come in hot and things are really tense, like they are in the world right now, they're not able to hear you. So for me, this is a moment where I have to just share the kindness that is every part of my being, and then let them unpack, even if I don't like listening to it.
Yeah, that is, so true. Just allowing them to unpack and then kind of like settling yourself first. Otherwise, you're going to be part of the problems. And recently I hosted an event, and, we've have a few speakers in there. And the coolest part is that the speakers' videos are out there. But after the video has gone out, I've also received messages from a couple of the speakers, like back to back, kind of like, I was like, so rather than immediately messaging back those speakers, I was like, you know what? I'm just going to let it go. I'm just going to focus what I need to do and take care of me and just let it go. And because then I was packing to go to Mammoth because my son Oprah has a hockey game. It's like well, in our case, 8-hour drive because we have little ones. So we have to stop every few hours. So I was like, okay, let me just pack for Mammoth. Let me make sure everything is ready. You make sure like the food is ready for the kids. I've got my Instapot ready to get to going. And I think I got the message on a Thursday. So I let it go on Thursday. I let it go on a Friday. And it wasn't until on Saturday, where I was up at the mountains at Mammoth, that I was like, you know what? I have the mountain with me. Let me take a moment to breathe. There was a bit of snow there. Enjoy the moment, take a breath, meditate a little bit, and then send, did a quick video for the speakers and then send them in. then everything has changed, right, Carol? The perspective. I'm not so much in a fiery mode. I'm not so much, oh my God, I can't believe you, whatever that's going on in my mind there. But now it's like, you know what? Here I am at this beautiful space. I totally hear you. And I just shared a story versus you should be doing this or whatever this. I just shared a story and allow that person to feel my energy and to calm. I didn't even tell her stuff, just tell a story and that's it. So it's so powerful what you say, Carol, in the sense that how you are showing up is the key to either resolving the conflict or having it from a 10 level intensity to a 5 or a 4. And so Carol has actually just had her TEDx talk released. And one of the things that she mentioned is conflict curious. So let's take a look at a quick highlights of Carol's TEDx journey. Carol, can you turn off your speaker just for a sec? Because I think that the echoey comes from there.
You got it.
Ooh, hi, I'm Carol Bartz. I'm at TEDxHuntingtonBeach, and I'm getting ready to speak about a firefighter's view on conflict and negotiation. Be sure to follow me on all my social media so that you can learn more about this great speech to help you do better. Can't wait to connect with you some more.
Oh.
Hi.
Okay, so I think this is the first time Carol is seeing it because I literally got it last night at 10 o'clock, 9 o'clock, whatever the time was. But it was such a special moment because we talked about this. Was it end of last year, early this year, Carol, about TEDx? Yes. I remember we were at the fish house, the Lure Fish House in Westlake Village. Yeah, it was Valentine's, wasn't it? That we kind of like touch based in that moment to kind of like you expressed your interest into giving a TEDx talk. And one of the things that you highlight was because I asked you why do you even want to do that? You're so busy, you have multiple things going on, and this is one more thing on your list. But there was one thing that you shared that that kind of like, oh yeah, I know where she's going, and I know the reason that you wanted to do a TEDx talk. So quickly share with us, what is your intention or vision that you had with the TEDx talk?
My intention is really about trying to make the world remember that it doesn't have to be hard to resolve conflict. We get so caught up in all the nuances, but there's so many simple, easy things. And back to my original message is it starts with us. And if we each lean in to just some really small, easy nuances, we really could change the world. And I think we need to change the world, right? Not just maybe your world's fine, but there's other people who are struggling and hurting. And I just want to leave our planet, wherever I go next, a little better than I found it.
Yeah, that's a beautiful thing. And, as Carol also mentioned about leaving an impact and, leaving a legacy and making an impact, which is what we are looking for at TEDx Huntington Beach. Because not playing for fame or glory, because that wouldn't last, like Carol, because the process itself, the 6-7 months it tends in the way that we demand a lot from the speakers, from the homework, from the rehearsal, from multiple things. So one of the things you mentioned is being conflict curious. So give us an example where we can apply conflict curious.
Sure. Now, you actually gave a good example of being conflict curious when you took a pause in Mammoth, right? You thought about it. You really stepped away from it. You meditated on it. You gave it some chance to breathe. And conflict curious is just that. If we respond out of our own anger and frustration or right fighting or defensiveness, we're not being curious at all. But the two most important things that research has found that we can validate in other people are their values and their emotions. But if we're going so fast that we're not picking anything up and we're just reacting, then we don't get a chance to find the nuggets that they're saying that might have some fact to them or might be the point of their message. And so being conflict curious is really learning to listen to people and explore what I call the next best question. And the next best question is by asking something that, say it's you and I that are in conflict. I'm listening to you, I'm unpacking you, and then I'm asking questions based off of what you said, not what I'm thinking I'm going to say in response to you, but I'm just letting you go a little deeper and a little deeper. And maybe I'm saying, what I'm hearing you say is this. Does this mean that this is what you're upset about? And you might say, well, that's part of it, but that's not all of it. And if I just keep asking you questions and unpacking, then I give you the opportunity to get through everything that's weighing so heavily on your heart and getting you frustrated. But it also gives you a chance for your emotions to regulate with mine. And I'll give you an example by way of a story of how it works against me sometimes, but for me, if you just stay tuned. So my husband, doesn't see me get really fired up very often, but when I do, it's usually something that he's done that's frustrated me, or I'm the other person who can get me because it's the closest is my youngest kiddo. And so what will happen is then I kind of sound like an angry chihuahua, because instead of having this like nice peaceful conversation, I'm mad, right? So I'm like, and he does that Mona Lisa smile, that soft smile, and he's just quiet. And he'll say things like, did you get it all out? Is there more you want to say? And he just has that soft smile in his eyes, and he just, and a soft smile in his mouth. But what happens back with those mirror neurons is it makes me involuntarily smile because my emotions are syncing with him. And it makes me so mad is because I'm not done being mad, but the fight's over by that point, because now we can just sit and talk and unpack. And we can do that in a more grown-up way, if you will. And that's what being curious does, is when you can just love the person through the chaos, even when there's not a reason to do so. And it also just means slowing down, breathing through it, and just being so curious about, like, why? What is it about this that's so aggravating for them? And then that opens up a world of possibility.
Absolutely. I mean, being conflict curious can, perhaps transform you from an angry chihuahua to a calm golden retriever. So that is settling you in. And, we love Leland. I think Leland is the coolest. I can imagine how he's, smiling and just kind of standing his ground, being the mountain, being the cool, calm, and collective person that he is. So while we're wrapping up the show today, Carol, today is election day, one that happens every 5 years. And there's a lot of tension, a lot of conflicts, and not just conflicts on stage with the politicians, but conflict in, wherever we go with the people around us, because it's such a heated moment today. Which team are we going to choose for? Which side are people going to go for? I'm on the right side. No, I'm on the right side. So give us like a quick point of view that you have, or a moment of conflict curious, or a moment of kindness and compassion that people can show in this case. And one of the things you mentioned in your TEDx talk, I think everybody should go and listen to Carol's TEDx talk, that the way you're being, which if you, with this particular person that you helped in a car accident when you were a former firefighter, how you were being in that moment, that kind of helps to navigate the situation a little bit better. So share some tips that we can navigate through in this moment of joyous day.
Perfect. Thanks for that. The first thing that I want people to keep in mind is when people have political views or religious views or really, really strong views about any topic, you're not going to change their mind. So the best that we're hoping to achieve is an agree to disagree. But even better, what I'm really interested in is understanding perspectives. So perceptions and perspectives on things are true to the person that has them. So rather than arguing about them, this is where that curiosity comes in. This is where I just want to listen. And I had one of those really tough conversations, and I didn't mean to, because as a mediator, I don't really ever want to put my views out there because I want to come across as neutral. So I'm a safe spot for you to talk about something regardless of what you think I stand or where I stand on that. And in this case, I was caught a little bit off guard in that the person had a really strong and very emotional stance. And it wasn't my stance, but I was still keeping that close. But the person was coming in really, really hot. And it was very clear that they were so passionate about this. And some of the things that they were saying to me didn't make logical sense. But that's not the time that you start fact checking the person or even questioning their logic. For me, what I was really still picking out is what was this person telling me that made their emotions go so high? And what were their values that made them feel this way? So while I couldn't, in my heart of hearts, say, oh, I agree with you and I agree with your choice of candidates, I could say, I also share your need for peace, or I also share your need for fairness. And that didn't acknowledge that we're on the same side of the political journey, but it did mean that I listened to what was frustrating them. And I could say that I can hear that you're frustrated about how you see X, Y, Z playing out. And so those were the things where I could meet that person where they were at. And I never did agree with them or disagree with them. And 2 days later, the person called and said, I loved the conversation we had. I don't very often get to unpack with people. It's always a fight. And it could have been in this case if I started sharing my thoughts, but instead they felt heard. And that's the best you can do at this point because the relationship stays intact. And I have a better understanding, which has over the last few days made me ponder about what am I thinking? And am I right on all of the views that I've had? And it gives me a chance to be exploratory. And at the end of the day, that's what I'm hoping we all can do is share a little, give a little, take a little, and make us all pause and grow together.
That is awesome. And in saying that, I share your point of view on peace. I share your point of view in justice. I share your point of view in this fairness and truth and honesty, or however that you want to see the point of view from, I think is a great way of settling things in and seeing it from a different perspective and just being curious about things. It is easier said than done, being curious, especially when you're in a heated moment. But we do encourage you to apply it. Just even if it's take a breath and take a moment to stop, pause, and reflect. Okay, Carol, let's end today's interview with fill in the blanks. Conflict curious is
taking the time to listen to another person, even in the absence of a reason to do so.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Carol, for sharing your tips and ideas about how to be conflict curious, how to resolve conflict quickly, and who you can be, who can you choose to be in that moment of conflict and see where you can find a common ground to de-escalate a lot of things, not just in your personal, but also in your business, in your career, and everywhere you go. So thank you, Carol, for sharing us those tips. And thank you, everybody, for watching and listening. This is your host, Dr. Izdihar Jamil. And until the next episode, remember, courage and bravery is when you have the guts to take a moment to pause and reflect and just be a little bit curious on things. See you in the next episode. Take care. May peace be upon you. Let's say bye.